Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Burn the Rule Book podcast. This is the podcast where we break down everything you were never taught about menopause, mental health, and relationships one truth at a time. I'm Rachel Boyle, a licensed couples therapist, sex therapist, and certified menopause specialist. This podcast helps you understand what is actually happening to your body, mind, and relationships, and gives you real tools to move through life with clarity, calm, and connection. Let's get started. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Burn the Rule Book podcast. Today, I'm going to go over this position statement on menopause from the Royal College of Psychiatrists. This is their menopause and mental health position statement that was just released March of 2026. And what it has done, it's highlighted some pretty big gaps in menopause awareness and our healthcare system. So the first thing that's being addressed is the deterioration in mental health and what that looks like for women. It's worsening anxiety and depression, which I've talked about a lot. Also more catastrophic thinking that can happen with women, feeling trapped in what experts describe as the menopause hole, characterized by a lack of knowledge and hope. Stigma related to pre-existing mental health conditions. And so remember, pre-existing mental health conditions can be pre-existing anxiety or depression or ADHD or bipolar disorder. All of these pre-existing mental health conditions make perimenopause and menopause worse. Also, dealing with comorbidities that can come along for women in their 40s and 50s, such as cancer or mental health decline or arthritis, things like that that's happening, and also can be exacerbated by loneliness. Now, what they identified is that there are significant gaps in the healthcare system, such as knowledge gaps, meaning that when women go to see trained providers or clinicians, they're not being screened for perimenopause and menopause. And the screening should really start for women in their late 30s to start catching some of these things before the symptoms get really bad. Because I really think that women shouldn't have to suffer really terribly a lot before they get good medical treatment. So significant knowledge in the healthcare system. Also, diagnostic overshadowing, meaning the misattribution of symptoms of menopause to some other issue. So instead of women being diagnosed in perimenopause or menopause, they're being diagnosed with anxiety, or they're being diagnosed with depression, or they're being diagnosed with other things rather than what is actually the root cause. Also, delayed explanations for their symptoms. So most women go to several different specialists before someone finally tells them they're in perimenopause or menopause. And that is actually what happened to me and so many of the women that have a similar story as mine. Also, the important use of appropriate medication. So using SSRIs or other medications to treat menopause symptoms or perimenopause symptoms is not addressing the root cause. And there's lots of data out there that shows that using SSRIs along with hormone replacement therapy actually provides better outcomes than just using one of those treatments alone. Finally, women in midlife can have financial pressures and work-life pressures. So you're usually at the peak of your career. You've also likely got teenagers or late stage teenagers in the house, and you're likely dealing with aging parents. So all of this is also happening at the same time when you don't have access to the most amount of emotional resources that you would have had you not been in perimenopause or menopause. And finally, the thing that can help the most is creating positive experiences for women, helping them get educated, helping them to understand what's going on with their bodies, their emotions, their brains, and redefining their identity. So much of our culture is focused on women's youth as their value. So what happens is when women start to age and they get older, they start to really lose their confidence because likely unknowns to them, they've internalized this narrative that their value is based on their youth and how good they look. And, when you get into your 40s and your early 50s, things start to change a little bit. So being able to redefine women's identities as this is what a healthy functioning, late 40s
50, 60-year-old woman looks like, acts like, feels like is really important. Now, there are specific at-risk groups, which they've identified, which most of us in the perimenopause, menopause world have known, but they finally got it down here, which is especially neurodivergent women. So if you are neurodivergent, you're on the spectrum, or you have ADHD, perimenopause, menopause will likely be harder for you. Also, if you have depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, all of these things compound to make things feel worse for you. So it's not all in your head. You actually aren't feeling really great. And, there's this culture that talks about reframing everything with perimenopause and menopause into a positive. Now, there are some beautiful things that you can get maybe going through this or on the other side of this. But you know what? Sometimes women, when you are in the thick of it, you're not ready to hear what the gift is in all of this, right? So looking at what is actually happening and understanding that these things are real can help you feel like there's not something massively wrong with you. It helps you feel like it's not all in your head, that you're actually experiencing these things. And so one of these things is the need for accessible information. So once again, there should be screenings in doctors' offices, in psychiatrists' office, in therapist office. And so when I became a therapist, I learned nothing about perimenopause and menopause. I learned about anxiety and depression and medication management around those kinds of things, but not anything about perimenopause and menopause. And so, when I finally recognized what was going on in my life and I started to screen the women in my practice, who most of them were in their 30s, 40s, and 50s, a lot of the women in their 40s and 50s were actually in perimenopause. So that really changed the treatment plan. My treatment plan for them, it also helped me to get them some really good help because they weren't finding the help out there. And there still is a real gap in the amount of trained clinicians, therapists, doctors, psychiatrists out there. So women are still not getting the accessible information that they need. And so this is really interesting. They said for bipolar women, over half, 55% said perimenopause or menopause symptoms had impacted their bipolar. Now, hopefully in a better world, they would have been aware of that, right? Because their psychiatrist would have told them. But if their psychiatrist isn't aware and then they didn't get told and all of a sudden their symptoms get worse and they don't know why, that can be really confusing and so disheartening for women. So a third said that although they were experiencing symptoms linked to perimenopause, they had not been to the doctor about it because they didn't know, right? So education is so, so important. Only 31% of women had been offered HRT. Of those who were taking HRT, hormone replacement therapy, 64% said that it helped them. 64%, that's a massive number. So knowing what your options are, knowing what your treatment options are, becoming educated in this space for women is so, so important. And thank goodness for social media because, social media really, really started to boomed when COVID happened. And so there's so much of this information getting out there now, but this is fairly recent that this information has been getting out there now. And it's still not enough. Like there's still so much misinformation that I address in my practice and with my clients, with their partners, getting them help and helping them feel better. So really good stuff, you guys, from the Royal College of Psychiatrists. I'm really glad that they are putting this stuff out there now and they're acknowledging the need in the psychiatry world for there to be more knowledge and more training around this. Once again, thanks for joining. Please leave me a comment. Let me know if you've got any questions. And if this was helpful, please share it with a friend. And I look forward to seeing you next time.
Thanks for spending time with me today. I hope you found something helpful, validating, or just a little more human in our conversation. Remember, while I'm a licensed therapist, I'm not your therapist, and I'm not a medical doctor. This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and does not constitute medical or mental health advice. For personalized care, please consult with a licensed healthcare provider or mental health professional trained in the area you're seeking support. You deserve expert guidance that's tailored just for you.